So recently I got to see the newest Atlas robot from Boston Dynamics, and I decided to make a 3D print model of the robot. In this video, I'll walk you through step by step how to take your image and generate the 3D model, go over segmentation, retopology, texturing, and rigging. And if you're new here, my name is Kevin. I've been doing robotics and AI for 10 plus years and have lots of resources on my channel. I also have a master's robotics and AI bundle, as well as a robotics projects bundle to help you get started in your career. All right, so here we are at the Tripo AI website. I'll leave a link in the video description. You could go ahead and check it out. You could use the free credits to get started. So there's a few ways to get started. You could come up here and start typing a prompt or click on this image icon to upload your image and then click generate model. Or the other way is to come over here to the top that says 3D workspace, click on that, and then here you're gonna have a window where you can upload your image. If you want some image tips, you can also hover your mouse icon over this light bulb and you can see there's cases you want to avoid, like if it's too flat, messy background, or subject is incomplete. So this is the image that I will be using. I've already uploaded here. And then once you've uploaded and confirm all your settings here, you can see we're using Ultra. And then there's an option here to generate in parts, privacy, and so on. So just once you confirm all of that, just come to the bottom here and click on generate model. So this will take a little bit of time. So just let it run. And then once it's done, we could come back to see the results. You can see as it's generating, it could already start forming the actual figure of the robot as we see, but you can see the progress bar is still loading, so we could just wait for it. So you can see right here, this is our model, and if we take a closer look, you can see it generated a lot of the details of the picture that we captured. It's pretty amazing how it's able to get the back of the robot, even though it only saw the front. And the level of details that we see here is also very impressive. You could see when we open up our image, you could see if we zoom in, we see all the details around the chest. You see how dark this area is? It was able to even pick that up despite the bad lighting. And same with here, you can see there's some areas with pretty poor lighting as well. The hand is a little bit hard to see, so I can tell that it might have a hard time figuring that part out. But if you come back here, you can see that a lot of these details around the wrist was fully captured. The general shape of the hand is definitely there too. You can see the 3 fingers here, both on both sides. So that's all pretty impressive. And you can see from the back too, if we look closer to the bottom, you can see that all of this part is pretty good. It's also standing in the very similar posture. One thing to note though is that the head is kind of floating, so it's missing a bit of a structure there, but everything else is pretty good. You can see even the head orientation is roughly in the right direction. So this one is another example that I tried running, and you can see what's different now is this one actually has a neck, and all I did was a very simple change. In fact, I'll tell you in a little bit what I did, but just to go over the differences, you can also see here too, the feet. You can see there's not that bottom piece, but there is some additional pieces that you see here, which I ended up resolving. You could look in here in this image. There's some specs here. It's a little bit hard to see, but there's some specs here that if you just remove in your image, you could clear that up. But this part, you can see I've added a little bit of clarity around the neck, which helped it definitely to generate some of the structure here. So you can see that it's going to be sensitive to the actual model. But let's take a look at another one where I remove some of the parts around the feet. So you can see this image right here, I cleaned it up. There's no shadow around the feet. So once I remove that, you can see in my 3D model, the feet is a very clean output here. So having the initial image as clean as possible, removing any stray marks will help with the final generation, like you can see in this model that we have right here. So once you're satisfied with the model that's generated, you could come down here to the yellow button, click on export, and you want to choose the file format you want. Since we're 3D printing, we would choose the STL format, and just go ahead and click on export to export the STL file. So you can see right here, we're in Bamboo. We could prepare our model for 3D print. And you can see it's standing up right now, which is gonna take a lot longer to print. So what I wanna do is let it rest on the back here. I could click on the model and then lay on the face. So I'll just choose a plane on the back here to let it lay down. So you can see here, this is our model with all the support materials, and you can see it layer by layer how it looks like. So now let's go ahead and pop this into the printer and let it start printing. So here we see this is the final print. You can see the level of detail it was able to capture and the accuracy too. The back you can see is a little bit rough because I had this laying on the back when I was printing, but you can see overall everything else has very good quality and details, just like the real model. Everything is in proportion. So that's a really neat feature of this. Now, there's another really cool feature, and it's called segmentation. It's going to be the third tab up on top. So to get it started, you just come down here and click Start Segmenting. And then this is going to break up your model into individual parts. So you can see right here, all the different colors represent the different parts that it detected, considering it as a part. But you may not want it to be exactly the way it chose it. So you have some control over it actually. So for example, if I come down here to the feet, you can see that the bottom feet right here is the white part. So if I wanted to extend this white part, there's actually a brush tool here that you can choose. So once you click the brush tool, it's very similar to the paint application. You could first pick a color here, white, and then you could start extending this a little bit. And if the pointer is too big, you could change the pointer size to be smaller so that you don't go over too much. One thing to note too is once you're done, you could X out of it. But actually all these parts you could shift individually. You can see I could move the torso up and down. And then if I wanted to see this arm specifically, I could shift it to the side. But what you want to notice is that when you have these segmentation, these parts are actually hollow here. You can see if you zoom in here, you can kind of see there's actually nothing inside of here. Same with this other piece, you can see it's hollow. So this is where the feature called part completion comes in. So first off, you need to identify which part this is. You can see this is part 12. So once you've identified the correct part, you could click on this button here called part completion. So what this will do is take your hollow geometry and fill it up so that it becomes an entire closed geometry part that you can use later on. And you can see once the part completion is done, you can see that this part is now an entire geometry. So what would you want to do if you actually want to export a specific part of a bigger part separately? So let's go ahead and cover how to do that. So you kind of have to go a bit of a workaround from what I found. So the way I like to do it is I like to export it as a FBX file. So I'm going to choose that. It's going to be compatible for Blender. So I'm going to first export that, and then I'll show you what I would do after that step. Okay, so this is a model in Blender. What I did was come here to File, Import, FBX, and chose the FBX model. But what you notice here is that in Blender, it's gonna have all of the different parts here for you actually. So they actually break it up for you. And what you want to do is identify the part. So we know that that one is part 12. So I'm gonna hide all the parts here and just keep the one I want for now for demonstration purposes. So you can see I have the arm here now, right? So if you're working with SolidWorks, for example, you could either directly export this as XTL, or you could, STL, or you could export it as any other file types that you're working with. But in my case, I'll just do STL. So now you can see I'm back in Bamboo and we have the arm only. So you can see this is one really unique way if you want to extract a part of a greater model and just print part of it, or even put it in assembly in SolidWorks. So there's another feature here called Retopology. So if you click on this or hover over it, you'll see that what it does is it could either transforms your quads into triangles or vice versa. So if you come to the left, you could see there's different options here. There's triangle, quad, and then you could choose the smart low poly option, and you could either choose the exact poly count you want. or have it do the auto, so it'll figure out the best for you. But essentially what the retopology does for you is if you have certain geometry parts that you want to render better, or if it's too concentrated in terms of the mesh areas, then you could play around with some of these settings so that it can render better for certain areas that you want. Okay, this next feature I want to talk about is called the texture feature. And what this does is you could come here on the left and you could choose a specific image you want your robot to reference. So for example, if you choose like the Megapop, Classic, and so on, you could choose one of these and then it'll render the entire body for you. So I've already done that here, and you can see it basically changed the entire body of my robot. So this is a really nice feature. If you want to focus on like Blender rendering or animation, then you could have a nice surface for you. This last feature here is called rigging. So you can see we have a model here. This is a different model, but you could see if we come here to the left, we could see the skeletal structure of this robot, and you can see it lays out the arms, the body, and the legs with these lines. So you could choose different ways to make your model move, which is what rigging means. And we could come over here, you can see I've generated this shoot mode, so you can see it running towards you and shooting. So this is what rigging does. And there's also a lot of different options here on the left. You could go ahead and play with those as well.